All right, diving right in. Today, it's all about something I know a lot of you have asked about, speaking English naturally, like you actually think in it.
Yeah, like it's just second nature.
Exactly. And we've got some awesome sources you sent in that are packed with real conversation examples.
Real conversations are the key, right? I mean, that's where the magic happens.
Totally. So we're going to kind of pull out the best stuff, those golden nuggets that you can start using right away.
Like cheat codes, but for real life.
I love that. Cheat codes for conversations.
Exactly. And one thing that came up a lot in the sources, is how much we get stuck translating in our heads.
Oh my gosh,
It's
yes.
such a roadblock.
It's like my brain just freezes up.
It totally kills the flow.
And then by the time I figured out what to say, the moment's gone.
Right. And the other person's like, hello?
Exactly. So, any tips from the sources on how to break free from that translator trap?
Okay, so there's this cool technique that a few of them mentioned called morning narration.
Morning narration. Okay, I like the sound of that already.
It's super simple, but really effective.
So, what do you do?
Basically, every morning, spend like 5 minutes just describing your routine, but in English.
Oh, so like I'm brushing my teeth, I'm getting dressed, that kind
Yeah,
of thing.
got it.
And that's it.
That's it. Sounds easy,
It
right?
does sound pretty simple.
But it really helps to kind of prime your brain for English first thing in the morning.
It's like setting the tone for the day.
Exactly. And you're not even thinking about grammar rules or anything, just speaking naturally.
Makes sense. And I bet it's way more fun than just memorizing verb conjugations or whatever.
Oh, 100%. It's all about getting comfortable with using the language.
Now, another thing that came up a lot in these sources was fear.
Fear.
The fear of making mistakes, which, let's be real, we all experience it.
Oh, for sure. It's totally natural.
Like, I get nervous even thinking about ordering food in English sometimes.
Right, because what if you mess up? What if they don't understand you?
Exactly. So what do the sources say about that?
Well, they basically say that, yeah, the fear is real, but it's important to reframe how you think about mistakes.
Oh, okay, how so?
They say that mistakes are actually valuable. They're like feedback.
So instead of beating myself up over every little slip up, I should be learning from them.
Exactly. One source even compared it to like a basketball player who never misses a shot.
Interesting. Okay.
If they never miss, how do they know what to improve?
That's a good point. I never thought of it that way.
So yeah, embrace those mistakes. They're actually helping you get better.
Love that. Okay, I'm feeling a bit more confident already.
That's what we like to hear.
So let's get into some of those real-life conversation scenarios that you mentioned.
Yes, these are like gold. I mean, the sources are full of them.
Okay, so what's the first scenario we're tackling?
How about greetings and small talk?
Ooh, small talk. That can be tricky.
It can be, but it's so important for building confidence.
Right, and the sources actually had some really useful phrases for this.
Yeah, like simple things that can make a huge difference.
Okay, like what?
Like, is this seat taken? If you want to sit down next to someone.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. I always forget that one.
Or, what do you do? To start a conversation.
Ooh, that one always trips me up. What do you do? How do I say it naturally?
Just like that. See, you're already doing it.
Uh-huh. Well, I'm still a little nervous to use it in the wild.
Well, that's where practice comes in. And the
Wow.
sources actually mention a really cool technique for this.
Okay, tell me more.
It's called mirror practice.
Mirror practice. Does that mean what I think it means?
It does. Basically, you practice those phrases in front of the mirror.
Like talking to myself.
Exactly. I know it sounds a little silly,
Maybe a little.
but it really helps to get comfortable with the sounds and the rhythm of the language.
And no one's watching me fumble except me.
Exactly. It's like your own personal stage to practice on.
I like that. Okay, so mirror practice, check. What's the next conversation scenario we've got?
Right. This one is a classic, ordering food.
Ooh, yeah, that can be a high-pressure situation.
Especially if you're hungry and just want to eat.
And the menu is in English, and you can't quite figure out what half the things are.
Right. So the sources had some great tips for this one.
Like what?
Well, they recommend planning your order ahead of time, if you can.
Oh, that's a good idea, so you're not just staring blankly at the menu.
Exactly. Like if usually like chicken with vegetables,
Yeah.
you can practice saying, I'll have the grilled chicken with a side of vegetables, please.
Okay, yeah, having a few go-to phrases ready is a good idea.
It can really take the pressure off.
And then even if they ask you a follow-up question, you've already got a base to work from.
Right. You're not starting from scratch.
Okay, so pre-planning the order, that's a good one.
And what about you? What are some of your go-to phrases when ordering food?
Let me see. I usually play it safe and just order a burger or a pizza, so I'd probably say something like, "Can I get a cheeseburger, please?"
Classic and always a good choice.
Right. but I'm trying to be more adventurous, so maybe I'll try ordering something new next time.
There you go. That's the spirit.
Okay, so we've got greetings, small talk, and ordering food down.
What's next?
How about asking for directions? That's one I always struggle with,
Ooh, yeah, that can be tricky.
especially when you're in a new place and everything looks unfamiliar.
I totally get it.
And I have a terrible sense of direction, so even with a map, I get lost.
Oh, no.
I remember this one time I was traveling in, well, I won't embarrass myself by saying where,
We'll keep it a secret.
but let's just say I ended up walking in circles for like an hour trying to find my hotel.
Oh, that's the worst. So what happened? Did you eventually find it?
Well, eventually I just gave up and asked a local for help.
And how did that go?
Surprisingly well. She was super friendly and pointed me in the right direction, even though my attempt at asking for directions in her language was, well, let's just say it was creative.
It's all about getting the message across, right?
Right. And it made me realize how important it is to just ask for help when you need it.
Absolutely. And the sources actually highlight some key phrases that can be really helpful for asking for directions.
Yeah, like what?
Well, instead of just saying, "Where's the train station?"
Hmm.
you can say, "Excuse me, could you tell me how to get to the train station?"
Oh, okay. That sounds a lot more polite.
It is. And it shows that you're making an effort.
And the sources also talk about the importance of confirming the directions, right?
Right. Like you could say, "If I go down this street and turn left, will I see it?"
Ah, that's a good tip. I always forget to do that.
It just helps to make sure you're both on the same page.
And it shows that you're actually listening and engaged, not just waiting for your turn to speak.
Exactly.
Okay, so asking for directions, we've got some good strategies for that now.
We're on a roll.
And, another thing I was thinking about is that asking for directions can be kind of a cultural thing, too.
Oh, absolutely.
Like in some cultures, it's totally normal to just stop a stranger on the street and ask for help.
Right. But in other cultures, it might be considered rude or intrusive.
Exactly, so it's good to be aware of those cultural nuances.
One of the sources mentioned that in some cultures, it's more common to ask for directions at a shop or a business rather than just approaching a random person on the street.
Oh, that's interesting. I never thought of that.
So yeah, it's always good to do a little research before you travel, just to get a sense of the local customs.
Great advice.
All right, so we've covered greetings, small talk, ordering food, and asking for directions. Feeling more confident yet?
I am, definitely. But I know there's one more big one that a lot of us struggle with, and that's expressing opinions.
Ah, yes, the dreaded opinion giving.
It can be tough, especially when you're still getting comfortable with the language.
It's like you want to participate in the conversation.
Right, but you're also afraid of saying the wrong thing or sounding awkward.
Totally get it. It's a delicate balance.
So any tips from the sources on how to express opinions more naturally?
Definitely. One thing they suggest is using sentence starters.
Oh, like what?
Like simple phrases that can help you get your point across, like, "I think," or "in my opinion."
Okay, that makes sense. It's like a framework to build on.
Exactly, and it can help you sound more confident and fluent.
What are some other good sentence starters?
The sources mention things like, "I loved it," or "I thought it was amazing."
Oh, those are good for expressing positive opinions.
Right. And for negative opinions, you could use something like, "I didn't really enjoy it," or "I wasn't a big fan of."
Okay, those are helpful.
And if you want to disagree with someone, you could start with, "I agree, but,"
Yeah.
or "I see your point, but."
Oh, those are good. They're polite, but also allow you to express your own perspective.
Exactly. It's all about finding the right balance.
So these sentence starters are like little conversational power tools.
I love that analogy.
Right.
They can really empower you to participate more actively in conversations.
Instead of just nodding along, you can actually contribute your own thoughts and ideas.
Exactly. And the more you practice using them, the more natural they'll become.
Okay, so we've covered greetings, small talk, ordering food, asking for directions, and even expressing opinions.
We've hit all the major bases.
I'm feeling pretty good about this, but I'm also wondering, how do we take all this knowledge and actually turn it into fluency?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
It is, because it's one thing to know these phrases and techniques, but it's another thing to actually use them in real life.
Right. And that's where practice, practice, practice comes in.
Of course, but what kind of practice?
Well, the sources mentioned a few really effective techniques, like shadowing.
Shadowing. Okay, I've heard of that, but I'm not sure exactly what it is.
It's basically where you listen to a native speaker and try to mimic their pronunciation and intonation.
Oh, okay. So like I'd pick a recording of someone speaking English,
Maybe a podcast or a TV show, or even just a YouTube video.
and I'd try to repeat what they're saying.
Exactly. And the key is to really focus on matching their rhythm and flow, not just the individual words.
That sounds challenging, but also kind of fun.
It is. It's like a workout for your tongue.
So it's like having a personal language coach right in your earbuds.
Precisely.
Eh.
Another technique they recommend is recording yourself speaking English.
Oh, that one can be scary.
I know, it can feel a little awkward at first,
Like hearing your own voice played back to you is always a little strange.
but it's such a valuable tool for self-assessment.
So you can hear those little things that you might not notice otherwise.
Like maybe you're pronouncing a certain sound incorrectly, or you're not stressing the right syllables.
Oh, that makes sense. It's like getting an outside perspective on your own speaking.
Exactly. And then you can focus on those areas and practice them specifically.
Okay, so shadowing and recording ourselves, those are good ones.
Definitely. And speaking of practice, one source also mentioned the importance of finding a language partner.
Oh yeah, a language partner. That sounds like a good idea.
It's amazing. It's like having a built-in accountability buddy for your English journey.
Someone to practice with regularly and who understands the struggles of learning a new language.
Exactly. And you can motivate each other and celebrate each other's successes.
It's like turning language learning into a social activity, which is way more fun than just studying alone.
100%.
Yeah.
And one of the key takeaways from the sources is that it's all about making English a fun part of your daily routine.
Oh yeah, not just a chore you have to do.
Exactly. Think about it. How did you learn your native language?
Well, by being constantly exposed to it, I guess.
Right. Through hearing it spoken, through interacting with others, through making mistakes and learning from them.
It wasn't like I sat down with a textbook and memorized all the grammar rules.
Exactly. So the key is to find ways to immerse yourself in the language organically.
So instead of treating English like a subject to be studied, it's more about making it a part of your life.
That's a great way to put it. It's about finding ways to connect, to explore, to experience the world in new and exciting ways, all through the lens of English.
I love that. So it's less about studying English and more about living English.
That's a perfect way to sum it up. And actually, one of the sources made a comparison that really resonated with me learning a language is like learning to dance.
Ooh, I like that. Tell me more.
Well, at first, you might feel a bit clumsy, stepping on your partner's toes, unsure of the steps.
I can definitely relate to that.
But with practice, you start to find your rhythm, your movements become more fluid, and you start to enjoy the process.
And just like with dancing, the more you practice, the more confident you become, and you start to improvise and add your own flair.
Exactly. It's not about being perfect. It's about finding your own style and enjoying the journey.
I love that analogy. It really puts things in perspective.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I think the key takeaway here is that fluency isn't just about memorizing vocabulary or mastering grammar rules.
It's about embracing those everyday interactions, using the tools and techniques we've discussed, and finding joy in the process of connecting with others in English.
That's it.
We've explored some really practical tips and strategies today, from morning narration to shadowing to finding a language partner.
And all those conversation scenarios, they're like cheat codes for real life.
Cheat codes for conversations. I love it.
And remember, the best way to learn is to just dive in and start using the language.
Exactly. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's how you learn and grow.
And most importantly, have fun with it.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time for part 2.